Okay, Mike Lynch here. I'm with Mark Harrigan once again. We're going to get away from the fours for just a minute and talk about the Indian Chief. This model is a 1925, fairly early, 100 years old this year. When you go back to the earliest Indians, starting in I think the 03 or 04, they were just a little bicycle with a little tiny motor right above the pedals. By, I would say 11, 12, 13, they had the headstrom, which is a little more roadable, a little more power. They went from that to the Power Plus, which is bigger. Still is like a big bicycle with a motor. And then the very next model was this Indian Chief in 1923. Totally different type of a frame, more of a modern kind of a frame. It still had a little bit of an old look. This particular Indian is a 74-inch, which basically is about 1200 cc's. It's about the biggest motor you could get for the time. They probably came out in 23 or 24, whatever it was. This is a 25. Eventually by 1932, you could, or actually I think it was 1930, you could only get the 74-inch. The difference between this and the 61-inch is the 61-inch was a little easier to start. It was a little more roadable for around town. This one had a lot more compression, wanted to kick you back all the time. But the 74-inch in the advertisement, they would talk about it being for police and sidecar use and that sort of thing. And we know that's true because this one still had the sidecar mounts on it, as did our 1930 that we just finished. So in the state that we're in right now, we are ready to tear this whole thing apart. So I always like to do a little video right before it comes apart, talk briefly about what went into it. So much you can see there's still paint on the frame, even though it's not original. It tells me that you probably didn't have to do too much work on that. And as it turned out, it was very straight. The front forks, on the other hand, you can see all kinds of heat marks. It was in the shape of an S, probably got hit by a car from the side, who knows what. These did not have a front brake in the day, so you know, you had to depend on that back wheel. But anyway, everything is in a line. There's very little clearances here for these tubes that go right down through the fender. A lot of straightening had to go on. Every time I do one of these videos, I find something and I see a little dip in these handlebars. So I'm glad we didn't just take it apart and paint the handlebars and put them back on. That dip is going to have to be taken out. When you get over here to the cylinders, almost all of these have broken fins. We had John Bivens down in Southern California repair all these fins, and when this is all nickel plated, they're going to blend in beautifully. So the next thing we're going to talk about is the sheet metal. This tank already fit. Amazingly, this tank I used to own. I sold this gas tank in about 1985, which is 40 years ago, and it's made its full circle back to me. And there's reasons that I know this is the same gas tank. I'm not going to get into it. The toolbox was found at the Dixon swap meet. It's a perfect original. We got to clean up some holes here. I think Red Fred Johansson had that. This is most likely a reproduction chain guard, although it's the best one I've ever seen. Usually there's welds back in here. There's none. It seems to be a single stamping, so I'm very happy with that. The rear fender was a little different. It was mangled, chopped up, cut, mostly from vibration, a bunch of cracks. These gaps, we always try and get this clearance as we put paint on there. Those are going to close up a little, and we don't need it chipping coming in and out. If you come on this side, these little holes here, this fender was exactly the same from 1922 to 1931. The only difference was these holes would have been slots and a slight different hole configuration for the tail light. That needs to be corrected for the 25. Otherwise, that's good. You can see the gaps here. There's only about 1/8 of an inch in between there. Once the paint's on there, that's going to cut in half. So we had to do some work down on this bracket to move that fender in just a little bit. Worked out pretty good. But really, that's about it. The seat, did want to mention that Jerry Greer's carries just a lot of seat parts, especially for this. So if somebody looks up, I think 1923 or 4 Indian Chief, they're going to find a lot of parts for this bike. So the next time you see this, It's going to be restored. It's going to be all pretty and nickel plated. We still got a few little things to do to it, but hopefully we can blend these two videos together and make one big one.